The Liberal and National parties have worked together for many, many years in Australian politics. Think of them like two friends who usually agree on big ideas for the country. They formed what is called the Coalition. This coalition was the main group offering a Conservative choice at election time. But recently, on May 6, 2025, there was a big federal election. The Labour Party, led by Mr. Anthony Albanese, won that election by a lot, securing a historic second term. This victory was significant for Labour. It meant they continued as the government, and the coalition remained in opposition. This big shift and the election loss certainly set the stage for some soul-searching and potential changes within the Conservative parties. The news of the split came just a couple of weeks after that election. The leader of the National Party, a man named David Littleproud, made a very significant announcement. He said the National Party would not continue its formal coalition with the Liberal Party, effective May 20th, 2025. This means these two political partners, who presented a united front for so long, decided to go their separate ways, at least for the time being. It might sound like a completely new and shocking event, but it's worth remembering that these parties have split up before. The last time this happened was quite a while ago, back in 1987, and they eventually reformed their partnership. So, while it's certainly a major development, it has precedence in Australia's political history. So, why did they decide to split up now, you might ask yourself? Well, it seems there wasn't just one single simple reason. It was more like a combination of different pressures and disagreements building over time. The parties had started to find themselves on different pages regarding some really important national policies. For example, the National Party was pushing hard for a commitment to explore nuclear power for Australia. The Liberal Party, however, was not prepared to make such a commitment. They also held differing views on the best path forward for achieving net zero emissions targets. Furthermore, there were disagreements about spending on regional infrastructure and how to regulate the market power of large supermarkets, which the Nationals felt strongly about. And undoubtedly, the scale of the coalition's loss in the recent election likely prompted both parties to rethink their strategies and their partnership. What happened straight away now that this split has occurred? The Liberal Party, now led by Miss Sussan Ley, who is the first woman to hold that position, remains the official opposition party in Parliament. However, the National Party, by formally ending the coalition, will not hold its previous formal opposition leadership roles alongside the Liberals. Their members might be moved to different seating arrangements in the lower house, which could symbolically and practically reduce some of their day-to-day parliamentary influence. Mr. Littleproud will also see a reduction in staffing and financial resources that came with his previous role. For the Labour government, this division in the Conservative ranks might create new dynamics and potentially different pathways to pass legislation, particularly in the Senate. The National Party has stated it will now fiercely prioritise the interests of rural and regional Australia and remains open to future coalition discussions, but for now they intend to carve their own path. Big political changes like this decision by the Nationals and Liberals to go their separate ways can often feel intensely dramatic. It is almost like watching a major unfolding storyline on your television screen each evening. The news channels will talk about it constantly, often with very serious commentators using urgent tones of voice. We see the main characters, the political leaders like Mr. Littleproud and Miss Ley, making statements, and we hear lots of speculation about what they might do next, or what it all means. This kind of high-stakes public event can easily pull you into its narrative, making you feel as though you need to stay updated on every tiny detail. It can be quite gripping, much like a compelling television series, but it can also become quite overwhelming for many ordinary people just trying to get on with their lives. Watching all of this political drama unfold day after day can genuinely be quite tiring. If you find yourself following every single twist and every turn of the political debate, it can start to feel rather stressful. You might begin to feel anxious about what all these changes could mean for the country, for your community, or even for your own future. This constant exposure to disagreement, conflict, and uncertainty can lead to a state that some people call emotional fatigue. It's as if your mind and your emotions get weary from processing so much serious and often contentious information all the time. Think of it like listening to very loud, jarring music for an extended period. Eventually, your head just wants some peace and quiet to recover. Feeling this way is a perfectly normal human response when significant events are dominating the news cycle. When politics becomes very heated and a prominent feature in daily news, it can sometimes have the unfortunate effect of making us feel more divided as a society. It can subtly encourage an us versus them style of thinking. People might start to view those who hold different political opinions not just as fellow citizens with different ideas, but almost as adversaries. This is sometimes referred to by commentators as tribal thinking, where loyalty to one's own side becomes paramount. At the same time, all this big news emerging from the distant halls of Parliament in Canberra can make ordinary individuals feel somewhat powerless or insignificant. You might find yourself thinking, what can I possibly do about all of this? It's all so big. This feeling of learned helplessness can be quite disheartening, particularly when the problems being discussed seem so large and incredibly complex to solve. While these large national political stories are undoubtedly important and shape the direction of the country, focusing too much of our attention and energy on them can have another, more subtle effect. It can inadvertently take our focus away from what is happening right in our own local neighborhoods and communities. There might be pressing local issues in your specific town, suburb, or even on your street that require attention and action. These could be practical things like campaigning for better local park facilities, improving safety at a local school, or supporting community services that help vulnerable people. These are often the areas where individual people or small groups working together can make a real, tangible, and visible difference to daily life. If all our collective mental energy is consumed by worrying about national political intrigue, we might miss valuable opportunities to improve our immediate surroundings and daily lives. Now, with all this talk of political shifts in Canberra, you might naturally be wondering, how will this split between the Nationals and Liberals actually change my day-to-day life? For most people, and this is especially true if you are an immigrant, perhaps still navigating the complexities of a new country and building your life here, the honest and reassuring answer is probably not very much, particularly not in the immediate future. The news channels might be filled with analysis and commentary, but whether the Nationals and Liberals are formal coalition partners or not doesn't typically mean your morning bus will suddenly be late tomorrow. It doesn't mean your local grocery store will abruptly change the products it stocks on its shelves, or that your scheduled doctor's appointment will unexpectedly be cancelled. Life's daily routines and rhythms usually have a way of continuing on, often quite unaffected by these high-level political realignments. Let's talk about something that is understandably very important to everyone: your job and financial security. Many people, and particularly those individuals who have moved to Australia for work opportunities or are diligently working to establish financial stability for themselves and their families, naturally worry about how political events might affect the job market. The good news here is that a coalition split like this one rarely causes immediate, widespread or drastic changes to overall employment conditions. Businesses generally make decisions about hiring new employees based on factors like customer demand, the health of their specific industry, and broader economic conditions, not usually based directly on which politicians are working together in the opposition. So, if you currently have a job, its security is unlikely to be directly or immediately threatened by this specific political development. If you are in the process of looking for work, the prevailing job market conditions will continue to be shaped by those larger, more fundamental economic forces. What about your personal finances? Will your bank account suddenly look different tomorrow morning? Will the cost of essential items like groceries or fuel instantly go up or down because of this news about the coalition? Again, it's important to understand that the direct and immediate impact on your personal financial situation is usually minimal to non-existent. The price you pay for your milk, bread or petrol is not decided by whether these two particular parties are formally in a coalition or not. Of course, government budgets and overarching economic policies do have long-term effects on everyone's finances, but those kinds of significant changes happen slowly, unfolding over many months and even years as new laws are proposed, debated, and eventually implemented by the government of the day. This split itself is primarily about the internal organization and strategy of political parties, not an instantaneous change to economic law or your household budget. For many immigrants, a central and constant concern is understandably the stability and predictability of the immigration system. You might find yourself worrying if new political arrangements or shifts in the political landscape could lead to sudden changes in visa rules, application processing times, or ultimately your long-term future in Australia. It's very important to know that this particular split between the National Party and the Liberal Party does not automatically or directly alter any existing immigration laws or official policies. The Department of Home Affairs, which manages immigration matters, continues to operate under the current Labour government's direction and the existing legislative framework. While it is true that future governments or even significant future policy debates could lead to changes in immigration settings down the track, this specific event of a long-standing coalition ending is not a direct trigger for any immediate upheaval or uncertainty within the immigration system. Your current visa status or any application you have in progress remains governed by the existing rules and procedures. When big political news stories like this one are seemingly everywhere on television, on the radio, and all over social media, it's very easy to feel completely swamped and perhaps a little anxious. One simple yet effective thing you can do to manage this is to consciously control how much news you consume each day. You really don't need to follow every single update, every breaking news alert, or every opinion piece every minute of the day. Perhaps you could decide to check the main headlines just once a day, or maybe even dedicate a specific limited time a few times a week to catch up. This approach allows you to stay informed about the most important developments, but crucially, it also gives your mind a necessary break from the constant barrage of information and the potential anxiety it can generate. It's all about finding a healthy balance that works for your own peace of mind, so you feel aware but not completely overwhelmed by it all. Not all news sources are created equal, and the way information is presented can make a big difference to how you feel. When you do decide to check in on what's happening, try to find sources that offer calm, clear and factual explanations of events. Look for news outlets or journalists who focus on providing context and thoughtful analysis rather than just amplifying the shouting, the conflict or the drama. Some commentators and publications are very good at explaining complex political situations in an accessible and easy to understand way. They can help you see the bigger picture, looking beyond the day-to-day arguments and political maneuvering. Consuming this kind of quality information can help you feel more knowledgeable and less confused or alarmed by what's happening in the political sphere. It's often much better to understand one good, balanced explanation than to be exposed to 10 loud, conflicting or sensationalized opinions. While national politics plays out on the grand stage in Canberra, it's important to remember that your local community is where you live your life each and every day. Getting involved in local issues, no matter how small they might seem, can be incredibly rewarding and empowering. Maybe there's a local school that needs volunteers for a reading program, or perhaps a neighborhood park that could benefit from a community cleanup day, or a local charity or community group whose work resonates with you. These are the kinds of places and activities where your individual actions or your efforts as part of a small group can make a visible, tangible, and direct positive difference. This sense of agency and contribution can be much more satisfying and mentally healthy than simply worrying about complex, national or international events happening far away, over which you may feel you have little control. Focusing locally helps you connect with your neighbors and improve the world right on your own doorstep. Finally, it's always good to try and maintain a balanced perspective on things. It's certainly beneficial to have an understanding of what's happening in the country's politics, as these things do shape our society. But it's also vitally important to remember that politics, however engaging or concerning it might be at times, is just one part of a rich and varied life. Don't allow political news or anxieties to overshadow all the other things that bring you joy, meaning and contentment, your family connections, your friendships, your work or studies, your hobbies and passions, your personal hopes and dreams. These are all vital components of a fulfilling life. Try to keep a sense of proportion. Focus your precious time and energy on the parts of your life where you have direct control and can make a meaningful personal impact. Political landscapes inevitably change over time, but your own inner strength, your skills, and your connections with the people around you are constant resources you can always rely on.